Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the latest show from Netflix called Space Force. This show actually has a lot of political elements in it. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how they have a parody of none other than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez within their show. That's right, this show's about to get real political and real interesting to say the least, but it's actually not as bad or far left leaning as you might expect. I've watched a few episodes of the show already, including the episode with this AOC parody, and it's actually pretty funny. They goof on her a good bit. They make fun of her voice, her look, and the whole idea that there's this really young Hispanic, three-named representative in our government today. So they kind of get it. They kind of goof on her a little bit, and I appreciate this show at least trying to play both sides. But at the end of the day, the actor who played this AOC clone actually ends up kind of kissing the real AOC's butt. They try to walk it back a little bit because they're maybe afraid they made fun of her too much or something. There's still a left-wing tint to the show, that's for sure. It's not totally unbiased, but I think they play it in the center enough. It's funny enough that it actually works at some points. I was laughing at it at a few times, and it stars Steve Carell too from The Office, so it has a lot of good potential, a really good cast, a kind of funny premise that we're going to go over today. I'm going to get into it real quick here. So let me go ahead and spell a few things out before we talk about the AOC parody specifically, because that's the highlight and what I think is the most interesting. Since we've covered AOC a lot here before, we've talked about her and her annoying voice and her dumb things she said. So it's funny to see it kind of interpreted by this big major show coming out on Netflix. But for those who don't know, Space Force is a show created by Steve Carell and Greg Daniels, who also were the lead star and creator of the American version of The Office. So great people at the heart of this show, that's for sure. But they did get a little more political with this one. This is based on a real Space Force thing that President Trump announced and created just last year, and now they kind of spun it off into this joke show. So a lot of people want to goof on that idea, but President Trump actually made a serious and interesting claim and proposition to get America back into space. He wants to send astronauts to the moon again, maybe even talk about having some kind of mission to Mars one day. And this is just an effort of the president to kind of create a new system, get us back into space, expand our military, get this kind of idea out there, and rightfully so. And as expected, this has caused the ridicule, and this is why this whole show was made as a joke. Now, like I said, I, of course, am a Trump supporter, and I can understand why some might get defensive about this show. It certainly has some jabs at right-wingers, and it even hints at the president. It talks about him making this Space Force and talking about it on Twitter. They goof on how the president is on Twitter a lot. But besides that, he gets briefly mentioned in the beginning, and then it kind of moves on and just focuses on Steve Carell is the guy who runs the Space Force, and he has a lot of different instances and situations to deal with. There's this one with a monkey on a space station they have to handle. There's this one time where they're testing out this moon base and they have to do an experiment, different stuff like that. So it kind of gets off and away from the president right away, which is appreciated, and I can see why they didn't want to get too controversial there, but they still have the jabs in there, and they still have this kind of left versus right thing, but it's really not that bad. I liked it. I kind of got into it, and I had some fun. Granted, it was all kind of not really well delivered on. I think the Space Force show is getting kind of medium ratings. Like, some people can't really finish the show. It's a little more maybe boring for some if they're not totally into it. I think that has to do with the political angle too, because a lot of the jokes are kind of political. They're not super biased or mean-spirited, which is good. I appreciate them not going totally anti-conservative and kind of goofing on both sides. So that's fun. But the problem is it's just not the best show, I think. I think it's not as funny as people expected, especially from this amazing cast, which is not just led by Steve Carell. You got John Malkovich as the second lead kind of character. Ben Schwartz is a funny character who leads the press. There's a whole other supporting cast that are really good actors that are playing the the general's daughter. There's another soldier on the base. There's people in the Air Force. They talk about Russia versus China stuff too, which is interesting. That's not the cast, but that's another part of the plot that I think is funny, because there's one point where there's a Russian soldier who's helping the American Space Force, like kind of hinting at we're in bed with Russia. But then at the same time, there's a few jokes about China. There's a point where there's a bigger Chinese spaceship that takes over the American spaceship, and they have a lot of jokes about that. The competition with China is mentioned. So I appreciate all that, but I think that actually might be why it's not getting the best ratings either. Like, it's more kind of geared towards a political audience, or like a politically relevant or politically savvy audience. So it takes someone like me, probably like a lot of you that watch this stuff too, like we're the kind of people they might be aiming for. So you might want to check this out yourselves if you're interested. But more importantly, what we're talking about today is the AOC parody and how they kind of pulled it off good, but then at the same time they kind of caved in, and this article goes over it. As I said, there's going to be details about the AOC parody and the actress who caves into AOC herself. So with that said, it's called AOC Parodied on Steve Carell's new Netflix show Space Force. This just came out a few days ago. It says AOC is getting time on the small screen. Netflix's new comedy Space Force, which premiered Friday, spoofs the New York City congresswoman. On the show, a bumbling member of the Air Force, played by Steve Carell, struggles while running the newest branch of the military, the Space Force. The show's Astro Bureau was started at the urging of the unnamed president on his Twitter feed. President Trump created the real-life Space Force in 2019. That's the parts we went over and what started last year, based on a true thing. And I think it's kind of funny they actually even used the same name, which I thought was interesting. The real-world comparisons don't stop there. High-powered members of Congress named Shugler and Potosi, clear riffs on Senator Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, control the Space Force's budget. Yeah, I actually remember this too. I was wondering, like, I didn't catch all their names when I just watched it, but I did remember there was like a really old lady congresswoman that was in the show, and I'm like, that's probably Pelosi. I think she actually got a more favorable portrayal than she should have. She didn't seem the worst or too crazy. They should have made her look more like older or something, but it was still funny to get it represented and to have them go into this kind of budget meeting. This was in the episode concerning the AOC parody, and they kind of are getting their budget. They're discussing how much the Space Force should get or does get. And it was very interesting just to see those parodies, because like I said, I think it's just funny because we never see them. Like, we can never see any jokes. Like, if you just go to Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show, like, they don't even touch upon Democrats anymore. And it's kind of getting old. It's like all they do is bash Trump and some other conservatives, Trump's people, Kayleigh McEnany, like anyone that works for Trump, the Trump family, like they're the only ones that get attacked. So it's kind of refreshing to see Space Force have their own versions of Schumer and Pelosi. Yeah, they should have been less friendly to them, maybe goofed on them more. Maybe that's just what I thought, but it was interesting to see them in there. And I think the AOC mention in the AOC parody is probably the best part. Representative Ocasio-Cortez's counterpart is named Representative Annabella Yaciro Campos, who hails from New York. She's introduced as the youngest member of the Military Spending Committee, which Carell's character, General Naird, is testifying to. Yaciro Campos talks with her hands and wears a red suit. I want to tell my constituents on food stamps why your agency needs $10,000 orange. She asks, grilling Naird. The New Yorker is played by Ginger Gonzaga. So right out the gate, this is a part of the story, and you can see them kind of messing with the whole AOC thing, the food stamps thing, and she actually repeats this line in the show multiple times, and there's actually a good response from Carell at one point. He gets this kind of moment that kind of is one of the better moments in the episode and in the show. He kind of has a good explanation for this $10,000 orange, which does sound ridiculous on its own. I don't need to get into the whole plot and things here, but basically the way I say it is they made fun of AOC in this way. The way she spoke in the episode was parodied a lot. Like, they really did that girl voice, that sort of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, what about this? Like, oh, why is there a $10,000 orange? Like, they got her tone and her kind of up tone, her kind of up talk, you know, that Valley Girl voice that AOC is known for. They really nailed it. The impression was really good. The impression, Ginger, this actress does well. She's actually much prettier than I would give the other person she's impersonating credit for. She pulls it off, and she does the earrings, and then you can see in this picture here, she pulls off the look pretty good. And the only problem is like, yeah, she's actually pretty when AOC really isn't. But as far as the look, I mean, she's got the earrings. She should have had more red lipstick, like over the top red lipstick. And then that red blazer helps too. And it looks like her in general. The voice that she does really nails it. But I think it might have ended up being more insulting than they hoped for, because I think they really nailed her with that voice, maybe like too much. But it was fun for me to watch. Like the way they did her voice was awesome. It's worth watching the whole thing. But then the thing that kind of ruins it here is this Ginger Gonzaga kind of kowtows and gives in and doesn't stand her ground when she tweets at this part. Here's what it says. It says, "Hi AOC, I play AYC on Real Space Force on Netflix, a show made by kind, smart people like you," the actress wrote to the Congresswoman on Twitter. "It's an honor to play even a satirical version of you, and if you see it, I hope it makes you giggle. Grateful for this excuse to say thanks for all your work, especially now. BFFs?" So yeah, I don't know what work she's grateful for. I mean, AOC is not the best politician by any means. She's more concerned with her image and ruining the country with her bad ideas, food stamps, the Green New Deal, you name it. I mean, she's been pretty much MIA besides chiming in on these terrible, terrible demonstrations gone wrong across the country. And actually AOC's been encouraging it and like giving people tips, giving little pictures about how to handle yourself in a riot and how to cover your face and stuff. I mean, AOC is encouraging it, and she's also capitalizing and saying, oh, this is a time for healthcare. Like now that you see these riots, you could see how much people want healthcare, even though I have no idea how that's involved. Like, has anyone seen any of these rioters mention healthcare or talk about it, or how is that even involved at all? I don't know. But AOC thinks about it all the time. She wants her little communist rules to happen here. So she kind of sees what she wants to see. When she sees a riot, she's like, oh, these people are doing it because they want healthcare. And it's like, oh, it just happens to be the thing that you've been bragging and crying about for years. It doesn't make sense to me, but these people aren't very smart, sensical people. We know that. And even though this actress kind of caves in at the end and tries to kiss the butt of AOC, her performance still gets in the show, and it still comes through as pretty funny to me. I think the show is kind of in the middle. It's kind of left-leaning, but it also goofs on both sides. You know, you can tell that they're anti-conservative stuff a little bit. I'm not going to try and defend them too hard. I wanted the show to be funnier too, but again, it's not like really binge-worthy either. Like, I got through a few episodes, I had a few laughs, but it wasn't like, oh, I got to get through all these episodes. Like, I think a lot of people lose steam like halfway through the season. It's 10 episodes, and a lot of people say the back end isn't as interesting, and it's just kind of like bummer because it has such a good cast and crew. It has such a good leader, Steve Carell, reunited with his Office creator in this new show together with a great cast. The great John Malkovich is the second lead. I mean, there's all kinds of potential here, but I think a lot of it's squandered. I think a lot of it's also just, I think they might actually be getting in trouble because they're playing it too much in the middle. Like, a lot of liberals and the people that hype stuff up, they're more happy with a more farther left-wing thing, so that could be working against them in Hollywood. I don't think it should. Like, I think every side should get a chance and have fun, but that's just the reality we live in. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Talking about Space Force is always fun, and seeing this AOC parody was interesting too. Tell me if you guys saw it and thought it was funny by commenting everything below. Hit that like button also to support this channel. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell for notifications. Check out the second channel for more videos. It's called NoBS News. And until next time, you guys have a great day. Let me just take a quick moment to talk to you about my second channel. I recently relaunched and revamped No Bullshit 2, and it's now called NoBS News. I'm going to be doing new videos on there almost every day on weekdays, and then weekends we're going to be doing more live streams. So make sure you guys check out that second channel. There's already like, say, 10 or 12 more videos on there for you to check out right now. So if you want more content, search NoBS News on YouTube or click the link below this video.